everybody, this is Bina 007 joining you for the next in our edition of Wolfcast reviews of House of the Dragons. As a reminder, we will be spoiling potentially anything in the published works of George R.R. Martin and Game of Thrones insofar as it kept up with the books, but we will not be spoiling Game of Thrones insofar as it diverted from them. I am joined today by David HHH.
Hi, I'm David on the Discord, David HHH, and all that sort of stuff.
Cool. By Elle.
Hey y'all, it's Elle, Nettles on Discord.
By Michael.
Hey, Khal Wadege on Discord.
By Sara.
Hey, it's Sara, aka Dr. Blood.
By We Are Mere Mortals, of course, in the presence of Patrick.
Good day. I am Patrick, the Toll on Discord, Toll also in real life.
And I can very much vouch for the tallness of Patrick. And by Hannah.
Hey, it's Hannah, Shadowbaby on WordPress, Winged Shadow on Discord.
Yeah, and we're very pleased that you and your family are safe and sound, Hannah. After
Thank
the
you.
events of the weekend.
Absolutely.
And we thank David HHH and the Lord Baron Xander for keeping us updated, because I was genuinely upset. So good to know that we're all safe and sound, and hug your families close this weekend. Boys and girls listening, things can happen. Let's get on with today's show. So I'm going to do the same order and just go with a quick lemon cake rating out of 5. And then how we're going to do it today is we're going to discuss relationships, and we're going to discuss how relationships are influenced by ambition and sex, because that very much seems like the theme of the show. So just to get your juices flowing and your brains ticking over of how we're going to do it, we're going to do 5 sets of relationships. We're going to go, I think, in ascending order of creepiness and craziness. So we're going to start off with Alicent and Viserys, then Alicent and Rhaenyra, Viserys and Otto, Daemon and Rhaenyra, and then Rhaenyra and Criston. So that is how we're going to frame today's discussion. But let's once again start with David HHH with your lemon cake ratings for this episode, and how, you've not been on a Wolfcast for a bit, so how is this compared to the other episodes in the season?
I like this one probably more than the others. I'm going to give this one a solid 5, but there's some math involved. So I'm going to give it 5 for the story, for being kind of everything I want from a George R.R. Martin world. We've got the politics, we got the personal relationships, you've got betrayals, you've got all sorts of the stuff you want from these series. I'm giving it a bonus point for giving us Fabian Frankel shirtless and naked. Although I'm taking that point away from making it creepy and cringy.
But still a
So
5.
still 5. Right.
Is that your favorite episode so far, I'm guessing?
I think so, yeah.
Okay, very good. Elle, how about you?
Slightly elevated from last week. I gave it a 4.25, mostly because I feel like I'm starting to see the previous actions and inactions in the last 3 previous episodes of everything that happened. Looks like they're starting to bear fruit, and the transitioning of all the dynamics of everyone's relationship, everyone you actually just named. I, for one, thought Daemon and Rhaenyra had really good chemistry, and I really didn't feel as grossed out as I anticipated on that scene. I was actually more grossed out with Rhaenyra and Criston.
Right.
Yeah, I felt that was like mad cringy as compared to Rhaenyra and Daemon. So I thought it was, I definitely would give it 4.25. I think that's a good one for it. Very appropriate.
Fantastic. How about you, Michael?
Yeah, I really like this, so I'll give it 4.5 out of 5. All the character interactions were fun, seeing more of King's Landing. It had no cringy battle scenes. I really enjoyed all of this. There were a few nitpicks, but they were super minor, so good impression overall. Maybe the best episode yet.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. I'm going to just dive in and say same score as Michael, same reasoning. It's a 4.5. I'm only docking it half a point, really, because it mentioned the prophecy again, which is stupid. But other than that, I thought we got real character evolution, which is what I missed last week, and no stupid battle scenes. Sara, how about you?
I think, somewhere right around the same, like 4.5, 4.75. I really felt like this was experience rather than an episode. Like I feel like my analytical thinking was like not engaged for a lot of what was happening. So I do feel kind of like it washed over me rather than sort of going scene by scene the way that some of the other ones have. But it was a very different experience, and I continue to be absolutely enthralled by how different the tone and the energy and even the sort of thematic tensions are from week to week. So I've really been enjoying that. But yeah, it continues to be really, really strong for me.
Great. So far everyone's really into it. Is our tall overlord going to throw a spanner in the works here with a negative rating?
First of all, I'll start docking by docking some points, or half a point from mentioning the prophecy as well. It was the only thing that really took me out of the episode, really. I have to give this a 4.25. It is inarguably better than last episode, and last episode I gave 4. So it has to be a 4.25. And I think if it hadn't talked about the prophecy, it would have been a 4.75. I would say that I felt dirty watching this episode. I mean,
Yeah.
watching Game of Thrones, you had a feeling that some of the whorehouse scenes were sort of comical almost. When this, it did not feel like Game of Thrones when they entered that whorehouse. That's for sure. So yeah, a steamy 4.25, I think.
Yeah, everything about that's such a good like observation, because I felt like everything about it felt so voyeuristic, and I wonder if that had something to do with the fact that it was directed by a woman, and like she very deliberately directed it from like a female perspective, which I thought was really interesting. But yeah, definitely like the energy was really, really different as far as like the intimacy and even the gross, like, lie back and think of England, like, you know what I mean? But everything about it was just like, oh my God, I shouldn't be seeing this, and it's not just because you're like, oh, it's penises, but like that there was a forbidden sort of element.
Yeah,
to it.
but there is a maturity there, isn't it, with having HBO now in the world of having intimacy coordinators, having female directors. We'll get into it later, but the way they depict sex is incredibly different to Game of Thrones, and I think all for the better. And insofar as it makes you feel, as Sarah said, just feel, not think, and insofar as it makes you feel dirty, I think that's deliberate, not unintentional, not comic. It's very... You can still disagree with what they've shown, but you cannot disagree with the intentionality and the care that has been shown. Okay, last but definitely not least, Hannah, how about you?
Well, I think that there are moments that had a higher rating for me, but overall, I'm gonna give it a 3.5 maybe. I completely, when you were speaking, Patrick, about that Valyrian knife, I'm like, yes, exactly. It was so out of place, and just like, of all the damn times, why is this happening right now? And it was, I don't know, it was a little too Gandalf giving Frodo the ring for me in some ways. So there was definitely some great moments in it, and it was much better than last week, but I'm still not over the moon about any of it.
Okay, so there you go. You've got a full range of opinion there. I think we're all definitely more positive than last week, low base. Maybe Hannah the least, maybe me, I don't know, like a lot of us who really like it. Let us get into the meat of this episode, which is all about sex, intimacy, relationships, how people use each other in this world for political ends. And as I said before, we're going to look at 5 different relationship pairings. The first one is Alicent and Viserys. And to summarize here, we have Viserys very openly mocking her when she suggests that Daemon might want to see her tapestries in front of people, calling her to his bed on demand, even though she's gone to sleep, for sex that she endures rather than enjoys. And then finally, her, I guess, having a conversation with Rhaenyra where she explains, that you just see that is definitely a marriage that she had to do because it was a power brokerage. Whereas maybe in prior episodes, we'd wondered how far she was into it and wanted the power and therefore was more than happy to play this game. Or maybe she was then, and now we've moved forward in time and she's become jaded by it. So we also get a sex scene that's intercut with another sex scene in a brothel that has chemistry. This one clearly doesn't. How do you all feel about this relationship, what it says or doesn't say about both Alicent and Viserys' character, and how it was filmed and how successfully it was depicted?
I thought the juxtaposition was obviously really striking. I think it accomplished exactly what they were trying to do. I thought it was real gross also, which is probably also something they were trying to do.
Yep.
But the extent of his like physical decay and just kind of decrepitude was so nauseating. But again, speaks to something that I've been kind of picking up and enjoying all along, is what I was calling like the sort of banal disgust of this world by zoning out and staring at like the rat on your lavish bed canopy. Like that's why you had the canopies, right? So like I don't know, it was simultaneously like kind of heartbreaking and realistic, but it didn't feel exploitative in a way that like a lot of the Game of Thrones sex scenes would, the ones that were supposed to be like bad. So I appreciated that it was done kind of like respectfully for both of them, even though you're still watching it and thinking like this is a gross old man taking sexual advantage of a girl. Like you kind of didn't hate either one of them for that, which was, and I thought, very, very deftly negotiated.
How about you, David? You sounded like you had comments.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, yeah, definitely it just was creepy, and it was meant to be, and their relationship, like you were all saying, it seemed like before she was like kind of looking forward to this relationship and enjoying it, and now she's just bearing it, and definitely you can tell that the sex scenes are definitely directed by a woman, because it's just it's night and day how different everything is, but particularly this scene. And I have to say, I'm really glad that we didn't have to see either of the girls' boobs. I was worried they were going to go there. I mean, because technically both of the actresses are older. One's 19 and one's 22, I think. And so they could do it, but it just would have felt so much more icky than it was. And it already was pretty icky.
Yeah, I mean, it was very much trying to show Alicent as a victim, and I think it would have been exploited. Well, you could argue they were all exploitative, right, in Game of Thrones, but I think they were definitely showing her as a victim. And I felt, even before her scenes with Rhaenyra, which we'll get to, that this very much softened my opinion of her. I know people had interpreted her differently, and even in the books, right? I mean, some people really don't like Alicent, as Amin pointed out in a podcast of Ice and Fire, our parent podcast this week, which had an episode on House of the Dragons. Do you think there was character evolution or revelation in this?
Yes.
Between the two? Yeah, Patrick.
Well, I think that Rhaenyra realizes that everything she's fighting against is basically what her friend is going through, and she is powerless to do anything about it. While Rhaenyra fights with tooth and claw to just not be like her mother. It's kind of interesting the way that she is fighting so hard to not become her mother, when it then turns out that her best friend is the one who's really inheriting that legacy. And also, I want to note that us seeing Alicent with her child crying and stuff like that, it sort of shows that even if Alicent was into the relationship, into the idea of, marrying a king, she still got stuck with a lot of things that is difficult to know anything about really before you get into it, like parenthood and stuff like that, and being almost like, yes, you have servants, but you're like, doesn't look like Viserys is very active, hands-on.
I'm gonna call massive bullshit that the Queen of the Seven Kingdoms would be dealing with a crying infant in the middle. Like, I will absolutely not. Like, no.
Unless she wanted to. I mean, she may have choosing.
Oh, yeah,
But even if you wanted to, you wouldn't be let. I mean, that was a big thing with Princess Diana. She wanted to be hands-on, and they were like, no.
So this is one of the things I really liked about this episode that I think they did a good job painting over from the last episode, was the relationship between her and Viserys, and especially that scene when she's called out of her bed and then to his.
Right.
In a relationship where you're not necessarily in love, and her dad could have made a much more horrid match. It's not like she's married to a Joffrey, right? Viserys is a good king and a good man, I think. But there's a difference between that and actually being in love. And I think that the happiness that we see her with in the last episode, it was unsettling for me. But looking back from this episode, what I connected was, oh, she's pregnant, so she gets a break from
Oh, wow. Good
him.
call.
So
Good
she's
call.
in her own, and she's got agency, and she's got a lot of positive attention. So she's probably enjoying that break and not
And
having
also being happy about being pregnant. I mean, you can hate a marriage but love the children.
Right.
Again, Princess Diana, I
Exactly.
think, is a really good example of that. I just found it interesting thinking of consent during this whole episode, and I thought, when it comes to Alicent, she doesn't say yes, she doesn't say no, she acquiesces. How far is consent even a concept? Because how far could she even have consented or otherwise to her marriage? I mean, this is just a world in which consent for highborn ladies like Alicent and Sansa doesn't kind of exist. There's no room for it to exist, right? It's an anachronistic concept, and that made me incredibly sad because I thought, oh, we'll get into it, right? Did she consent? Does she not consent? I was like, well, it doesn't even make sense in the context of her marriage.
Yeah, it's not even really a question, is
Yeah.
it?
During that scene when they're in bed together, Bina, it really reminded me of something you'd see on I Will Destroy You or I May Destroy You, you know?
Yeah, very much so.
And it was
Sorry,
really
Sarah?
uncomfortable to watch.
Yeah.
I will say
Definitely.
though, I think they, again, I mean, it was sort of treading that fine line, but I do think that on one hand you could look at this and say like, okay, well, this is maybe the best that you could expect in a world like this, but then I mean there is a genuine like tenderness to their relationship, I feel. And I certainly don't think that it's sexual, and I don't think it's particularly romantic, but I mean, just the kindness that she showed him in the bath when she realized that the servant was hurting him, or the conversation that they had in front of the window where he seemed genuinely to seek and appreciate her counsel and her perspective. I mean, those are all things that, yeah, like I think it could really go either way, and I think it's really important to sort of recognize that it could be like, oh, that's so sad that like that's the best you could hope for, or there is some genuine good in this this otherwise.
Yeah. But I mean, that is the marriage that Catelyn had, that everyone else had, and if it matures into love, then great, and if it doesn't, then it doesn't. I mean, it's just like a lot of arranged marriages, right? Sorry, Elle, were you trying to say something?
Oh, just about the "I may destroy you" comment. I think that was a really, really good comparison with those sex scenes because none of those were intimate or beautiful or just even remotely passionate in that kind of positive way you would see, coupling. I was just saying that was it really reminded me of that a lot.
Yeah, and I would say to the listener, if you haven't watched Michaela Cole's I May Destroy You, it's a very powerful but very harsh piece of TV to watch, and very triggering if you've been through any negative sexual experiences. But for female-centered writing and the way in which sex and sexual abuse is depicted, really powerful. So I'd highly recommend it.
Do you guys think that her relationship with him will change, or his relationship with her rather will change now that he's unhanded his hand?
That's a good point.
I don't think so. I think he genuinely cares about her, and I think he's genuinely grateful for the comfort and company that she's brought back into his life. I don't see him holding her accountable for Otto's sins.
Yeah, he can be a bit bitchy though.
Well, let's get into the next coupling, right? The next coupling is Otto and Viserys. So let's talk about that. So in the course of this episode, we've seen Viserys previously depicted as maybe a little bit weak, a little bit vacillating, not clear in his direction, and therefore storing up problems for the future. Be more forceful with Otto, although there is a very pathetic moment where he says, I now realize that you weren't just sending your daughter to comfort me, you were putting her in my path for marriage. And like, you literally just figured that out. But by the end of the episode, evidently, and we'll get into that, Rhaenyra trades getting married for Otto being removed his hand, and apparently her father goes for it. So how do you feel? Let's just focus in on Viserys and Otto. How do you feel there's character evolution there, and sex being used for power, but obviously trading the sex of your daughter for power? Going first, let me just pick at random. Elle.
I think that she is actually going to be more resentful in the near future about that with her dad getting fired. I think that kind of in a way, Otto is going to still be the hand of the king via from Hightower. I think that whatever he left, that power that he left and that influence that he left, it's still kind of, maybe Alicent is kind of going to be like him by proxy, kind of in a way that it won't bode well for Alicent and Viserys as far as that dynamic, which is already a dynamic that was lacking in intimacy, but that amicable part of it that they've had and what we've seen, I think that's going to go away.
Yeah, it's hard to see why it wouldn't be impacted, even if she does genuinely have tenderness for her husband. I mean, I feel, yeah, it isolates her further, although not that we've seen much of her relationship with her father in this episode or indeed the previous one. David, thoughts or anyone else thoughts on this?
I don't know. I mean, I feel like in terms of her, I feel like, I mean, they're still married, so that's going to be there. And it did probably just get a little more awkward now, but I think they'll be fairly similar. In terms of Otto, it'll be interesting to see where he goes from here. And, does Viserys become more paranoid of everyone now? When his most trusted advisor basically has been scheming against him all this time.
It just makes you feel like they make enemies wherever they go. I mean, even that opening scene where Rhaenyra is just rejecting every house's suitor, and you think, oh, you're just pissing off every single house.
Right.
And now her father's going to piss off, So you get Corlys and you get the Valerians on side, but now you've lost the Hightowers. It's like like one of those boxes with little bubbles in, and you just can't keep everyone happy. But I just thought Viserys came off simultaneously more likable because more forceful, but then also, did you just figure this out? I thought you were more clever than that.
Well, I don't know that he did just figure it out. And the reason that I question that, well, it's twofold. One was the acting from Otto. First, when he went to tell what he knew about Rhaenyra, and then again in the like when he called him for the conference to fire him, he was standing kind of sideways, and he wasn't quite full facing Viserys, and almost looked like he was gonna cry a couple of times. And I thought that was so powerful because I didn't understand, he looked afraid or sad or whatever. And I felt like maybe he was aware that he was about to push it too far.
Okay.
Which suggests that he at least suspected that Viserys was kind of letting him, because then, if Viserys could have some kind of internal plausible deniability or something. But the fact that Viserys took it all the way back to the day that his father died, that's where he started with this stream of accusations, told me that it's been something he's been maybe subconsciously or kind of ignoring or turning a blind eye to. But I don't think he was like, hey, wait a minute, and I didn't have that impression.
The stuff that's been lingering and festering in his head is finally okay, yeah, it's there. I think that's where we're going.
But he really overreached. He knew his ambition. He even acknowledged that when talking to Rhaenyra, the courts and the lord and ladies, they always trying to get something, it's part of the, it's part of the job. And I think really at that point he had reached his, now you fucked up now. I know you and I know who you were and how you were, but this is it. I'm done.
Yeah, I think up until that point, Elle. I think up until that point, Viserys couldn't point to anything that Otto had done to him or against his interest, where he's like, oh, he's kind of a slime ball, he's kind of a string puller, but I know he has my best interests at heart. And I think this was the time where he was like, oh shit.
The irony is that this is going to be the thing that does him in, and I don't think it was completely bad intentioned. I mean, obviously I'm sure he was thrilled to be able to give an excuse to change the who's going to be the next king here. But at the same time, I mean, what else is he supposed to do? He found out this information, and as far as he knows, it's true, and it's his responsibility to tell Viserys about what happened and what his brother is doing. That's kind of an important thing. So, I mean,
and he even does it not in a big kind of small council to embarrass him. He even does it the right way.
Exactly.
Which, unlike Viserys, he goes to him one-on-one and is reluctant to even say it. I mean, it's I mean, what else can you do if you're whistleblowing, right?
Exactly.
So.
I think that's the irony of it all, is that the thing that takes him down is the thing he kind of didn't want to do. Although he would have benefited from it, obviously.
I did think that scene where he's confronting Viserys about what has happened, and he's not saying the details, and Viserys keeps saying, "Go on, go on, go on, tell me." And Otto, you could say that in his mind the wheels are turning. He's like, "Oh shit, Viserys isn't taking the bait." Like when he first says Rhaenyra was at a brothel, and Viserys is just like, "Whatever, what's the point?"
Right.
Yeah. The way he really forced him to like spell it out for him felt much more calculating than Viserys has been before. But it's like that thing where they say, if somebody makes like an offensive joke, you should just say like, "Oh, I don't get it." Like, why is that funny? And then the more they have to explain it, the more like awkward and stuttery they become. Like,
I think Viserys has known for a long while that Otto wasn't playing entirely on his team, which is why he has several times gone to Lionel Strong for impartial advice. It's
Yeah, good point.
I think he's always been he always known that Otto was representing some other interests than just the crown. Also, just quick in that Harwin Strong, we saw him, and that's good. So it was just but yeah.
I love it. Whatever gives you happiness. Okay, so let's move to the other sort of side of the triangle of these specific relationships, which is now which is now Alicent and Rhaenyra, who have a deeply moving conversation. It feels like they're, if not friends again, that they can speak honestly to each other. Alicent sympathizes with the dilemma Rhaenyra's in, that she has to go and find a suitor, and listens to Rhaenyra complain that she doesn't want to be married off and just become a womb. Obviously, Rhaenyra, subtle as nothing, realizing that's exactly what's happened to Alicent.
Right.
I feel that somehow in the conversation about whether Rhaenyra had slept with Daemon, there was almost a jealousy. And it's not like I'm in seriousness standing the idea that Alicent and Rhaenyra had a thing for each other. It's just, I do think there's something about when you have a close female friend and a boyfriend comes in or a love interest comes in, it can destabilize that relationship. And there's a sort of, I didn't approve of this. This came from nothing. I'm not sure how I feel about this. That felt to me incredibly true to life. But there was a kind of possessive jealousy, which I rather liked from Alicent towards Rhaenyra.
Yeah, especially because she's the kind of grown up one, I think. And speaking about sort of real world or realistic female dynamics, like I think there's she was kind of like the mature one who like did what she was supposed to, and that there's a kind of resentment or jealousy that like maybe Rhaenyra is not going to follow that same path.
And like a big sister saying, "I'm the one that always has to make sure everything's right, and I got to be responsible," while kid sister gets to tear ass around the place and cut up.
You see, I'm not even sure that she was, to Sarah's point, jealous that Rhaenyra gets to forge her own path. I think she kind of fears for her. I feel that with Alicent, despite seeing her having to endure sex with Viserys, that there's a safety in just doing it the way society wants it done, and a certain protection, a sort of conservative with a small c, of just playing by the rules and let the rules take you. And I think she's just worried for Alicent going completely outside of the rules, and what will happen to you, what will happen to your reputation, what will happen to the safety of your position at court. I felt it was more not envy but concern.
Yeah, I think I don't believe that, or I didn't get the impression that it was envy either, but more jealousy in the sense of like that protective impulse, right? Where it's like you want to protect the things that you have and keep them close,
right?
Rather than
Yeah.
I actually got a more troll concerning stepmother vibe, and this may be because I'm poisoned from how I feel about Alicent from reading the book, so that could possibly be it. But I felt that it was not that great. Truth, it was true.
Oh, okay.
Not that like great. Like your dad married a woman that is not that far apart in age from you, but here she is asserting some kind of maternal role, like it's best for you, like you have to do these things, I'm worried about you, in that kind of way.
Your father and I worked very hard to find you.
That is
absolutely.
what I got. That is the vibe that I got. Absolutely.
And yet some of that maternal, maybe condescension, is warranted, because at the end, when the maester comes in with an abortive potion, it's clear that, I mean, number one, she scandalized her dad sending this to her, but she's also, you get the feeling she hasn't considered it. Like, she hasn't sat there and thought, oh shit, I mean, I didn't have sex with the guy everyone thought I did, but I did have sex with Criston Cole, and actually, should I be worried about being pregnant? So I think there is a naivete. We'll get into it with the two Rhaenyra love scenes, but I think Alicent, to me, I didn't like her in previous episodes. I thought she was more scheming. In this one, I thought she actually came across quite well, because I felt there was authentic consideration both for her husband and for her stepdaughter.
Yeah, she puts herself on the line in that conversation with Viserys, where she says, like, I believe her. I really don't think she did this. She swears to me that she did. You know what I mean? Like, there could easily be repercussions for her if she goes out on a limb like that, and then it turns out not to be.
Yeah, that was very bold. Yeah, she really stuck up for her.
Yeah, I think that it's quite obvious that Alicent is more into the faith of Seven and their like scheme of beliefs than and the Seven Kingdoms scheme of beliefs than Rhaenyra is. It seems like the whole knowledge. Yeah. Of course, Viserys is also angry, but in a different way. But it's so I can sort of feel the difference between the Targaryens and the rest of the kingdom and how scandalized they are about the notion of Targaryens being with Targaryens.
I agree.
Also, when Viserys asks, I also felt that there was a sort of, yes, he says to her later on that she is not able to go and father as many bastards as she like, but in the exchange with Hightower, it seemed like he was saying, well, she is a dragon. Your rules are not the same for her.
I feel like in that respect, it reminds me of Daemon saying to the sea snake, like, I can talk shit about my brother all I want, but you don't say anything about him. Like, that there's a different set of rules for them among themselves.
Yeah, like no one's going to talk about my daughter being a slut apart from me.
Yeah,
The but I think that Patrick makes a really acutely superb point about, are you ruling as a Westerosi or are you ruling as a Targ, and do you interpret ethics as a Westerosi or as a Targ? And I feel that this episode was the first time I felt we were really getting into that fascinating debate that George set up in Game of Thrones with Dany, which is you've landed here for many generations. And in a sense, I find Viserys suppresses his Targaryen nature. Maybe that's because he's not a dragon rider and it's subconscious, but he kind of rules as a Westerosi person, right? He doesn't marry into his family. He takes but one wife. He kind of rules according to constitutional monarchy, right? Like, he isn't just using his dragon for power willy-nilly. Whereas you get the feeling with Daemon, number one, asserts it. Like, I want to have multiple wives, even if that's not really his targness, but just wanting power. Dany, you get the feeling, Rhaenyra has that enjoyment of her Targ aspect. And that was also what we saw with Dany, right? Like, she tried to rule as a fair, just Westerosi ruler, but actually just even in the books, as far as we've seen, when she's leaving Meereen, is just, in unleashing her Targness. So I feel we're starting to see that debate here, and I really find that fascinating when it comes to Targs in Westeros.
I feel like that Targ exceptionalism thing that Jaehaerys, called about with the faith militant does not and will not apply to women at all. And we're going to see that.
But also, the hunt last time also sort of showed that he buys into the whole Westerosi mythos thing. Having to go on a boar hunt and suddenly a white stag that is a good omen for whom? For the dragon? Dragons don't need good omens. They dream. They have fire. And that's what I felt like what Rhaenyra was doing when she let the white stag live was, what do I care about a white stag? That doesn't change anything for me.
Yeah.
Killing that one.
I don't need to pursue this thing that they think is important just because they say it is.
Yeah.
Just for this relationship, I was just very relieved that there was a second win for Rhaenyra and Alicent. If they had been estranged from episode 2 onwards, I would have been pretty disappointed. That's about it.
Yeah, I agree. Anyone else for anything on the sort of Alicent, Rhaenyra, Viserys, Otto events at court? Maybe we put it that way, on any of these relationships and power relationships.
Just for the dismissal itself, Viserys did a really uncharacteristically good job of laying out why Otto is unsuitable as Hand, so it does make me curious when he gets reinstated what justification Viserys is going to use. And that's a question for,
I
I don't know, 4 or
know.
5 episodes later.
Maybe in this season, maybe not. I don't know. Let's see where we shake out. Okie dokie, right. So let's move maybe to the meat of this episode. There are two very fascinating sex scenes involving Rhaenyra. The first is the one we'll get into first, which is Rhaenyra disguising herself as a boy, sneaking off into King's Landing, being taken to a brothel by her uncle, being told that she should, take sexual enjoyment where she wishes, that it's as important for women as for men. And he basically, I don't know, is grooming her. He comes on to her, she responds. It feels like they're going to have sex. Many people in the episode think that they have, but it feels like at one moment he pulls back. He realizes he can and maybe has a pang of conscience or realizes he doesn't actually need to get out. It's filmed, it reminded me a bit of Aladdin at the start, but as we've already said, it is filmed in a very illicit. It is filmed in a very sort of like illicit, voyeuristic, very dark, barely visible way. They're at great pains to show the sexual frisson between uncle and niece without it being exploitative, which is a very fine line to tread.
I think they did a very good job with this scene, particularly with looking at Daemon and what he was processing and why he decided to ultimately just walk out after having a bit of a tantrum. I also, not on a second reread, but having other people point out that Daemon deliberately took off Rhaenyra's cap while they were in the brothel, made me think that this was a deliberate act to be seen, and it was provocative for reasons that we'll see in a later scene with Viserys and Daemon. What else do I have to say about this? Yeah, it was good. I feel bad for not being disturbed by the incest.
I think we're so warmed up to it in the dark, I wasn't that disturbed by it either. It was more to me the coercive nature of taking a very impressionable young girl. You've just come back from this heroic victory and basically deliberately turning her on and then not fulfilling that and then basically leaving her to go off and work that off in whatever way she wants. But the whole thing was just very manipulative in so many ways.
Yeah, at the risk of repeating my Maegor debacle, I think that for very obvious reasons, the brothel part of this excursion is taking up a lot of the kind of critical attention. But I do really think that they laid the groundwork that he genuinely cares about her and wants her to be safe or happy or secure or whatever, not only in the conversation that they have in the Godswood, but also in what he takes her to see before they go to the brothel, specifically the show that's showing her claim is not secure among the small folk. In fact, she's like, well, I don't give a crap what they think, like they don't matter. And he's like, they do matter because you're going to be ruling them. And that sense of sort of breaking her out of her myopic palace bubble and introducing her, not just to the pleasures that we pay for, but to this sense that really you're not as secure as you think you are. You need to reach for this, you need to push for this, you need to take this, and I can help you do that. And I mean, obviously there is self-interest there, but I do think that he's trying to take her along with him, I guess, in a very kind of realistic way.
Do you think he cares for her?
I do. Yeah.
I do.
I think
Yeah,
he sees himself
same.
in her. So it's, maybe it's narcissistic, but I do think that he sees a younger version of himself where she's desperate for love and lonely and set aside for reasons that aren't her fault. And
I got that too, and I thought, am I being manipulated by Daemon? I don't know. Elle,
I felt that way
you?
too. Yeah.
He's getting you too.
No, I think he truly wants the dynasty to be better, wants Targs to be Targs, and sees a spark in her that could make that happen or help that happen.
I mean, I looked at them and I thought they'd probably be very happy together.
Yeah, totally.
They understand each other. They're into each other. I mean, in the context of a world where Targs do get married as family members, this could probably be this is probably a better marriage than Alicent and Viserys.
Mm-hmm.
That's
I
not a high
definitely
bar.
agree.
Except for the
Actually, I think Alicent and Viserys actually is a successful marriage by Westerosi standards because it's not abusive, it is respectful. Yes, there's some sort of like, unwanted sex, but basically that's part of the bug. I mean, actually, I think as marriages go with big age gaps in that world, this probably is one of the better ones.
Yeah,
I
that's what I was
genuinely
saying. So
think.
like you can choose to see that as optimistic or you can choose to see it as sad. And I think it's kind of a little bit
Yeah.
of both.
I feel like Daemon does genuinely care for Rhaenyra. I agree with that. Insofar as someone like Daemon could care for anyone else, I think like if a modern psychologist was to sit down with Daemon, he'd probably be diagnosed with narcissistic personality disorder, probably borderline personality disorder. I think he's very manipulative and self.
Is he any more
Serving.
manipulative than Otto, though? I mean, is he the most manipulative person even in this episode? I mean, he
to me though,
manipulates
it's
to
flashier about it.
he manipulates to have
Damon.
sex with a young girl, but then Otto manipulates to pimp out his young girl. I don't think they're particularly different.
Right. I'm just saying with as far as Daemon goes, I don't think that he would genuinely care for Rhaenyra if she didn't have the position at court that she had. So is that genuine?
I don't think he would care about her if she weren't a Targaryen, but I don't think he
Right.
cares about her because she's the heir. I think he genuinely like feels a kinship with her.
It
Gross.
doesn't hurt.
Ow,
It doesn't hurt. It doesn't hurt that she's the heir, does it? I mean, let's be
Yeah.
honest.
Right.
I think it's the wonderful package.
Yeah.
She's
Yeah.
hot. She's a Targ. She gets me. She
Yeah.
has a claim to the throne. I also have a claim to the throne that's a little bit shit. If we put our claims together, we trump everyone else's claim. That's really hot.
Yeah.
I think that's basically
Yeah.
the train of all that's going on.
Yeah.
She does check all the boxes.
But is
that's
that
true.
real? Is that real?
Could
But
be.
does that have to do
can
with Rhaenyra her as a person?
Yeah, she is. She's a sparky Targ, not a tame Targ.
She's got some
Yeah.
spunk.
Mm-hmm.
Well, yeah. She's quite literally at the end of this episode.
Oh
Oh.
Oh, come on.
Well, the tea will take care of that.
I'm glad that went that direction. That was set up as intended.
Yeah.
I did
I
want
much like you are Michael. You are the Otto Hightower of this podcast, just
you
queuing me
go.
up to
Right.
make the inference. But it is an interesting essay question / HOTD poll on the Discord server, which listeners should join. Are Otto and Daemon really that different?
to.
They both want power. They're both willing to use young, innocent, naive girls and manipulate them and use their sexuality to get it.
Yes, they're different.
No. They're totally different. Yeah. Go ahead, Patrick. I want to hear what you think.
Okay,
about that.
I can lay out a
they're
few
way
things that I think they're different. One of the things is that Otto is obviously also pressured by his brother to do this. First of all, that's one thing. Second of all, I think it is I don't think Daemon actually is very calculating, to be completely honest. I think he gets into a mood and then he does what's right in that mood. While
Agree.
everything Otto Hightower is calculated, and whenever he needs to do something on a whim, that's when there's a probability of failure in it. So that's
you can't see Daemon doing a multi-year plan. And actually, what happened on Dragonstone shows that he comes up with like slightly stupid plans that fail.
Yeah.
Yep.
He really
Otto
is
is
a kind of
long
fly
term.
by.
Damon is short term.
Mm-hmm.
I was trying to figure out during this whole scene how much was planned, what he was doing. Was he into her, or was he just trying to mess with Viserys? Was he trying to just be an agent of chaos? I wasn't clear, especially when once we got in there and then he stopped. I wasn't clear what was going on there at all. And one thing that's interesting, I don't know if you've all seen the inside the episode, is I wasn't even 100% clear if they actually did go all the way or not. I thought they didn't, but apparently they describe him as impotent in that like he literally couldn't do it at that moment
They
when he
have
thought
already
about it.
established, credit to the writers, that his dingle does not work. We learned, right? We learned about the dysfunctional bloodworm in episode 1, right? When he can't finish with Mysteria.
True.
The dysfunctional bloodworm is clearly the title of this episode.
There you go. There we go. Bloodworm.
Oh no.
No.
Okay.
The Targaryen bloodworm.
Yeah. I have also a
That's not
thing.
what he calls it, right? Come on.
I mean, say what you want for Viserys. His bloodworm is very much functional. He may not ride a dragon, but he is a dragon in the sack.
He gets written. Did he set up the whole discovering? Is that why he pulls the hoodie off, the hat off, or did he pull the hat off to say to her, "You're a dragon. Do whatever you want," like
Right.
trying to free her
It can be
before?
both.
I think it was both.
It can be
Yeah.
both. But I think it is a setup. I mean, it's clearly a setup.
You think he had the whole thing planned and Mysaria just double crossed him or what?
I now think Mysaria is working on her own volition. Like it seems very much that she is telling Daemon, in the 4 years you've been away, I'm now an information broker, and so I'm just passing on information that you were not being discreet at all about trying to hide. But that was my impression.
He knows. I mean, he knows already from the Air for a Day that what happens in brothel doesn't stay in brothel, right? So he would have no expectation of privacy, which is why he disguised both her and himself, and then subsequently stripped off both of those disguises in a very deliberate, very sort of provocative way.
Control,
So
isn't
did he-
it? I mean, it's just control. You're in disguise. I can reveal you when I choose. I can have you when I choose. I'm not sure he's even in that moment. I think it's more lust than anything else. But it is a power move because he knows that they're both at risk for being found there.
So do you think he was just surprised that it was Mysaria who was the information broker, and that's the whole thing? He just planned on getting caught, and then just surprised by who caught him.
Like, he didn't strike me. I mean, he was hungover as F, so maybe it was like dulling his. But he wasn't like you, or like, hey, I haven't seen you in a while. He was just like, oh yeah, all right, like I don't know. It just didn't strike me that he was like particularly taken aback by.
I kind of like Patrick's interpretation that he goes with where his instincts and his fire takes him. I think this started off as a, hey, let me fuck with this family here, and let me take her out, and I like her, so let me show her. I mean, one of the questions we had in the discussion on the Discord was like, is she into him? And I feel like the seduction wasn't him, it was you can control your own destiny, you can control your sexuality, you can take control and take power because women should be able to. Like, I think that was the seduction for her.
But
And
I think
feel
she's
like
also into him. I mean, he is a hot
Maybe.
war hero, blonde. I mean, we're meant to see him as being sort of swaggering and charismatic.
I mean, he's the embodiment of everything that she wants for herself.
Right.
Going back to your question of are he and Hightower the same, I would argue no. I think that Otto's motives are very different. I think Otto Hightower's kind of akin to Donald Brennan, where he understands that the success of the crown is tied to his success. So he has a notion of mutually assured destruction. So he's not doing these things to undermine Viserys. He's doing them to promote himself within the strong reign of Viserys. Whereas Daemon could burn it all down, and I feel like he still has a sense of I'll come back out on top because I have fucking dragon. And,
Yeah, I agree with
so
you.
I think that they're vastly different in that way, although their actions might seem parallel. The motivations just inherently have to be different.
Does anyone have anything else to say on this particular little love affair, or shall we move towards the inevitable Rhaenyra trying to get rid of her blue balls with Criston Cole?
Can we talk just before we go there about like Viserys and Daemon's relationship? Because I feel like we got a little bit more of that in this episode too, and I think that has sort of bearing on the romance or whatever it is. That's
absolutely.
Go, Sara.
What should I do? Okay. No, I was just thinking about like it's sort of parallel to what I was saying before about what I think his motivations are. But like when he's on the floor in the throne room, and Viserys is finally sort of showing some fire. He's telling him, he's like, you're the dragon. Your word is truth. You decide what's true. And he's asking to marry Rhaenyra so that he can return the proper glory of the house. And I mean, I think that really crystallized sort of what we were talking about before about, are you ruling as a Westerosi? Are you ruling as a dragon? And for me, it was an echo of like when the two dragons showed up on Dragonstone, and suddenly it wasn't about the normies anymore. It's literally just dragon on dragon. But that was
and only dragons neutralize dragons
Mhm.
by virtue of them having fucking weapons of mass destruction, right? So
But I think,
in a way, it made sense, and I think you're right. This is back to that Targ versus Westerosi ruler.
Yeah.
And I actually do have some sympathy with Daemon on that, like the idea of trying to rule against your own inner nature.
Yeah.
We've just seen that happen to Dany, and we've seen it not work. So
Yeah. I mean, I don't. Yeah. Like the sort of extreme worst case scenario of that would be Maegor, which is something that comes up later in the discussions. Starting where it's like he's like, no, it's literally just fire and blood. But I don't have that impression from Daemon, and I feel like part of their sort of Jasmine Aladdin trip to the flea bottom was to show that as well, like that he understands humanity like beyond the walls of the palace, and I think that's a really important aspect of him.
And doesn't make him a bad ruler, right? The
Mhm.
fact that he does, get out from his studies where he's building his Lego world and get out to the people. It's not
A better rule.
which interesting touch that old Valyria has become bigger since last we saw him. So he's been busy over the intervening years with his model. Okay, so anything else on anything that isn't Rhaenyra and Criston?
I have one. I think I want to hammer home that I completely think that question, can I let me marry Rhaenyra, was what he wanted out of it ultimately.
Oh, yeah.
The whole sex scene.
Yeah.
Because
Agree,
I tried. I think he tried to force Viserys' hand to get make them an honest couple, because that's a thing that Targaryens can do. There's two things that went wrong with that plan. He couldn't go through it. He had a limp dinkus, and the second thing was that Viserys is too Westerosi. He's too much drunk the Westerosi Kool-Aid and would never. And thinks and literally looks like he thinks it's disgusting that they were the possibility of them being together.
Oh yeah, he's totally Westerosi in that respect. So he can do mixed age relationships with consorts, which is very Westerosi, but he can't do the incest. And it's like, to me, well,
Yeah,
Yeah.
a girl that's basically your own daughter, like the best friend of your own daughter. That's fine, but
yeah, don't marry any.
I mean, objectively, he's had
Sort of
two
their
perfectly reasonable solutions to the storm that we know is coming, right? Either to marry her to Daemon or to marry her to Aegon. And I'm not saying that I'm in favor of betrothing toddlers, but like that was another moment where you're like, wow, this could actually be like a really solid solution given the sort of ethos of this world. And he was like, no, so he's almost like,
and these aren't stupid solutions. I think it's important that we give Daemon that credit, even though he has obviously lured his niece to a brothel. Let us now move, in the interest of time, to the final coupling of this show. So to summarize, Rhaenyra then goes back to her palace and finds the deliciously gorgeous Criston Cole there, initiates sex with him. And this is very interesting. And I think this is where we could get into some debate about how it's filmed, because suddenly the lighting gets warmer, the music becomes more romantic, there's flickering candles. So it's almost played as if from her perspective. So in her head, it's a really romantic deflowering and consensual on both sides. But what we, the viewer, see through that is that Criston Cole is almost kind of sighing and looking away, knowing that he has no choice but to perform for his princess. Whether we believe he has no choice, I think he probably has no choice. And so there are two very different ways of reading this scene. One is the way it's shown by HBO, which I think is very much showing her interpretation. And then the fact that he, again, like Alicent, doesn't say no, but probably feels that consent isn't even an option.
I'm not so sure he has no choice, because, couldn't he? If he says no, how's he going to get in trouble? He shouldn't be having sex with the princess. So, he's doing his duty to not have sex with her, and he shouldn't be having sex with anyone, to be honest. But I mean, so I don't feel like he has no choice here. That's what I wasn't clear about, was what they were going at. Like, I was flip-flopping during the scene in my head. Like, at first I really, really wanted him to say, no, 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 I can't do that. And then I'm like, well, are they going for, the whole bodyguard thing? Like, I've always had the hots for her or not? Or not, I'm not really clear on what they were. And then he like, he took his white cloak and he folded it up and like looked at it, kind of like I'm losing my honor here. So I was like, okay, so maybe he doesn't want this. But then the actual sex scene itself was at least filmed romantically, and it seemed, like we got a close up of their intertwined hands, and it wasn't just like passion, although it was passionate, but it was like it was romantic. So I wasn't really clear on what they were going for all along with it. And I think that's kind of what we were supposed to think, is we're not supposed to be
ambiguous. But if you think of the previous episode where he's thanking her and saying that, my family's name was never inscribed into the great book, you have, raised my family to this height. He could have clearly said no, but I'm not sure. I think he feels under huge obligation to her.
It's a mix of, he'd probably like to keep his virginity and his oath as a Knight of the Kingsguard, plus he also has the hots for Rhaenyra in some way, and then he's just clearly aware that this woman is going to be queen very likely one day, and so it would be unwise to refuse. And when you look at the morning after, where Rhaenyra is kind of just smiling and having fun, and Criston Cole has this super Eris Oakheart look of embarrassment or just regret and mourning, and you can see that this has profoundly affected these two characters in different ways, which I think will be very interesting going forward for Criston Cole.
Yeah, he looks like a fallen man, a man he's disgusted at himself, but she just looks all super happy.
The very first thing that he said to her in the scene is stop. And I think that should pretty clearly
matters,
right? Like that.
I mean,
there's been a lot of talk about this already, and I don't really want to get all that into it. But like, if the genders had been reversed and that had been sort of the foundation for this subsequent exchange, like there would be a lot more questions about who took advantage of whom. But I do agree with the ambiguity, and I think part of it is how much they focused on how long it took them to get naked, which is like a weird, on one hand, she's like stripping him of the white cloak and she's stripping him of the armor, and clearly of like symbolism that she doesn't understand, but he does. But there's also, a lot of time, arguably, for him to kind of like cool down or realize that it's not. So there is,
or say no again, or just walk off, right? I mean, she's not restraining him physically.
But yeah, it just made me so sad. Like, it really did. I mean, I understood it as sort of reading romantic, and certainly I think that was well done from her point of view. But his eyes, the whole scene, were just like these sad, and the sort of longing glances at the cloak. Like, you guys are like, I mean, it was so clear to me that it was kind of already broken, and whether he was broken by like his own desires, like Eris Oakheart, or whether he was broken by like knowing that he didn't really have a choice or whatever. I think it was a little bit of all of those things, and it was just really sad.
I liked a lot in this episode the symbolism of her. She gives him the white cloak and then she takes it off. I enjoyed that bit.
And he took it away. Yeah.
And I think that's sort of the realization is, they can give it as much and they can take it right away. And that's my lot in life as a low-born person.
I think for me, the biggest tragedy with the two of them is how consistently they misread each other, and how badly. Like, and for me, one of the sort of moments that spoke so much to that was when she turns back during that Bracken Blackwood altercation that happens, and he says, "Don't look, princess," and he kind of like ushers her gently up the stairs, and she's like, "What? No, I want to see who got stabbed." Like,
right.
Like, on the other side of it, like, she sees him as this guy with battle experience, and he's brave and he's strong, and he's clearly this kind of like, I don't know, bravado sort of, I feel like she has an image of him in the same way that he has an image of her, and that those images are sort of very mutually complicating and like wildly inaccurate of like what either one wants or what either one is thinking at any given time, which is really sad, because I don't think either one of them is taking advantage of that or doing it on purpose. It's just, never the twain shall meet.
Communication breakdown.
For me, the biggest tragedy was we didn't get more naked Fabian Frankel. We only got like a few seconds here and there. We're like, oh wait, there's some chest. Oh, it's gone. Fuck.
But once
And they
again, let's talk about the fact that, you know, compared to how this would have been done in Game of Thrones,
right,
it's chalk and cheese, isn't it? I mean, it's so
right,
fleeting. It's male, not
yeah,
female. It's
yep,
very different, and again, much darker. It's just a much
mhm,
darker scene.
I think that contributes to the voyeuristic aspect that
right,
I got from it, right? Where
right,
it's like it's almost like the cinematographer or the director or whatever saying like this isn't for you, like you shouldn't be seeing this, you
right,
know.
right. Yeah, I mean, most of the scenes there was like something in the foreground, and we were looking through a window or through whatever, and like so you and that also kind of conveniently blocked certain things, you know, from view. So like you never fully see like his butt. You never see hers at all,
It's like
but you never see his. You only see like part of it here.
the
You see
Austin
his chest for
Powers
a
sausage
fleeting second. Yeah,
back in the day. Was there somebody spying on them? Was somebody watching them?
I think it was just the camera. I think it was just the
Was it
camera.
it was just us? Okay,
It was meant to
Yeah,
evoke that we were spying on them,
got
I
it.
think.
right.
Okay,
That's what I thought they were going for. I could be wrong.
okay, that makes sense. And it definitely
Mm.
it definitely felt that way, which like I thought made it feel more intimate and more.
It wouldn't surprise me if someone wasn't though, because like, isn't it the case that in Game of Thrones we always assume that everyone has little birds and little spies and everyone's got the servants paid? How isn't there a handmaid outside the room ready to whisper back to the maester or to the dad or someone that Criston called? I mean, he spent the night. He didn't. I mean, he was off his guard post. Surely someone's figured that out.
Yeah,
Yeah, when
maybe.
when does his relief guard you know like lace it back up, boys, we gotta change the guard.
I know that's what I was wondering. Like, when does he sleep if he's supposed to be the only one outside her room in the night and with her in the day?
Gotta make sacrifices in the King's Guard, you know.
Maybe there's like a Westerosi siesta at the hour of the sloth or something that we haven't seen yet.
But
The hour of
but
the sloth.
Kingsguard kind of code, like we don't snitch on each other or something. Like
Because none of them are virgins, are they? For real. It's like the wall. They're not actually virgin. Or do you think
kind
he
of
was a
code or
virgin?
something.
No, he said he had an adventurous youth and he could have married a few different people, right? Like had a conversation about it in the woods where he's like, no, I
Yeah.
got around. I'm like, yeah. Which
How do you think this plays out? I mean, we know how it plays out in the books, but how do
In
you feel the
terms,
show's going to handle this politically? Because now Damon might think he still has a hold on her from where he left off with her, but she's now got a new boo.
in terms of motivations for Criston Cole, I think one motivation going through his mind was, this night I lost my virtue, my oath, but you were just getting your rocks off because you were horny and in the mood. And, for you it was Tuesday, for me it was everything. And that might be a very interesting, motivating kingmaker scene.
I don't agree with
Yeah.
that. I think he's going to resent her for it in some kind of way. Yeah.
But do you think he's gonna are they gonna play like he resents her for actually doing it, maybe even invoking that, like talking about it, or do you think he's just gonna say, "I thought you loved me," and then be angry with her from then?
I hope that
out.
we don't get him coming to her and being like, "That was so great, let's run away," because like that's clearly not the vibe that he had the next day. At least, like maybe it was in the room, but he looked. I mean, like like you guys said, like he looked broken, right? And like I hope. I mean, I know that's one of the possibilities that's laid out in the book that like he proposes elopement and whatever to her, but I hope that they find a way to motivate that if that's the way they go, because as it stands right now, I will be shocked if that's what happens.
It does mean that for the first time where the book is ambiguous because there are multiple tellings of the same tale, that they are favouring the mushroom version, which is that she seduced him.
Yeah.
My favorite.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
I would
But
say
I
we
got
should-
a little the mushroom there.
Right.
I would say they're
Mushroom should be-
favoring just the most interesting version from a character standpoint, which often happens to be the mushroom account. But the book Criston Cole we get is not at all interesting or complex. He's just some guy that just got rejected for being outlandish in his scenarios. So that's not going to work on TV. And I'll say that is one of the...
It does mean, if they're following the mushroom version, that she's now going to go into the arms of Harwin Strong, doesn't it, though? Which could be interesting.
I did wonder, I don't think the timeline works out, but I did wonder if, and mainly because Mr. Dr. Blood, who has not read Fire and Blood, at the end of the episode, he goes, "That baby's going to come out Dornish!" And like, So I I wondered if there's like a chance with this way that they're threading it that like her first one
She
might
smells
actually be
Dornish.
He smells Dornish.
Well,
Well, there's no babies going to
fortunately,
for
come
the
out. Thanks to
actor,
the Maester, right? There will be no babies.
at the end of this episode, the holy hand grenade of Antioch came with its treasured moon tea.
Yeah.
But if she drinks it, she's admitting that she did sleep ostensibly with Daemon. I mean, obviously that's not who it was. But if she's like, "Thanks, great," instead of being like, "I don't need this. I told you I didn't sleep with anyone." Like, it's I don't know.
Yeah, it is shady. Anything else on anything else in this episode? Andor, what do you think we're getting next? I haven't seen the trailer. Is there going to be a time jump? Is it just going to continue on?
Didn't Daemon also have to kill the Sea Lord's son maybe in the next episode? Like, I don't know how they're going to get all that stuff in too. I'm not sure at all, but you mentioned it this one, so I assume it's coming.
Someone was falling under a horse, which made me think that Daemon will be killing his wife first.
Ooh.
Rhea Royce.
Ooh,
Oh,
the bronze
Rhea.
bit is gone. Poor thing.
I really hope they do justice to Rhea Royce. Like, she's just been slagged off whenever she's mentioned, so that would make me happy if she had some clever dialogue or whatever.
It was actually quite pretty.
Mm-hmm. I hope she has a pug.
Yeah. He hasn't had children with her, right? And he makes out it's because she is a bronze bitch and she's ugly. But maybe it's just because of his bloodworm issues.
Yeah.
Henry
Maybe
VIII
she's
and
actually
Anne
gonna
of
turn up.
Cleves scenario.
Yeah, maybe she's going to turn up. She's going to be really pretty. Although Anna Cleves apparently had rotten teeth.
In the conversation that she was having with Daemon about what happened to her mother made her so wary at best and on some level terrified of what struck me as very Queen Elizabeth I, who deliberately remained single throughout her entire reign, for a lot of reasons, but one of them being what happened to Anne Boleyn and what a nightmare that was. And so I don't know, it just struck me as like a pretty strong historical parallel that I thought was really interesting to make, like, in that moment and in that conversation.
Yeah, definitely.
To your question of time jump, the actresses who play the young Alicent and Rhaenyra are only in one more episode, according to IMDb. So presumably we're going to get a big time jump after, either during the next episode or at the end of it.
Well, I mean, it's so lovely talking about this episode with all of you, because I felt last week we ended on such a sort of negative Nancy note where we were just like, oh, this is shit and that's shit, which it was. So it was justified, but it was just, I almost felt like I was talking myself out of even when I'm watch this anymore. And I think this episode did what we all love, right? We people who were in VOC and came to it from the books, which is getting into personal dynamics and character growth and politics. I mean, that's what brings us to George R. R. Martin. So this felt like a very well done George, and given all the sex, not exploitative, but kind of exploitative where it needed to be and how it needed to be, which I just think kudos to HBO, because this is not where we were a few years ago.
This was beautifully handled. And
they really listened to us as a fandom, I feel, but in the best way, like fan service in the best way.
This might sound wrong, but from now on, I'm looking forward to sex scene.
Yeah.
I'm like, seriously. Before Anna was like, yeah, I'd rather have a battle with some blood than a sex scene, because the only reference I have was Game of Thrones, and that wasn't really appealing to me.
30?
And it's sex with a purpose, isn't it? Because it brings character forward through plot rather than sexposition. I mean, it's sex with an actual meaning, which is so different and a good part of life. I mean, like, so much of medieval politics and politics in general in that era was about sex and procreation, and which houses I mean, it's kind of weird you've got to have sex in it. It's just you've got to handle it responsibly. And I feel that they're there so far.
Absolutely.
The good news is this director is doing the next episode and episode 9, the penultimate.
Wow.
Ooh.
Okay.
So
Cool.
Awesome.
So that.
Well, on that happy, copacetic, lovely wolfish note, should we get a final aroo? Y'all are a bunch of nutters, and I love you for it. Well, it's kind of weird, isn't it? Because Queen Elizabeth's probably one of the very few monarchs in history who married the love of her life, and I'm sure that made things easier for her. And it's apropos of today's podcast.
When you happen to fall in love with a prince, life goals.
Although he was absolutely impecunious, and half his family were Nazis, and he had literally was stateless and had no money. So it's not as if
no one's perfect.
people were very angry. People were not thinking this was a great match, even though he was dreamy. And there is a little bit of the Daemon about it, right? Because he met her when I think he was like 19 and she was 14 or something. I mean, yeah. And he was very much the Otto Howtire of it was his godfather, Lord Mountbatten. He definitely wanted his family, which is Prince Philip, to have a seat on the throne and have children who were kings. So he kind of engineered the match. God, it is a bit Daemon and Rhaenyra. Ooh. Y'all are a bunch of nutters and I love you for it. But I feel like, do you think we're being insensitive to people who actually suffer from impotence problems? Because it is a real problem and it's not something to laugh at.
Well, maybe we cut that last
Do you
part.
think they really were going for that with him? I mean, I thought it was more of a he couldn't get it up with her because he realized, like, I can't do it with her. Like
emotional issues.
I think he has,
but
issues.
Justifiable emotional issues because she's a niece, and as much as he thinks he's a Targ, he is raised in Westeros, right? So I think it's kind of like you can talk the big Targ game, but when it comes to actually fucking your niece, maybe your body's going to be like, no, she's your niece.
But I do.
So no, I don't think he has ongoing impotence problems.
We did already see that he does, though. So I mean, I really do think that like. It's actually an important part of his character, which I think makes it sort of like more respectful than if it was just like an excuse for him not to consummate with her.
Oh, okay.
Because it suggests, at least to me, that he is not immune to the kind of emotional consequences of his own actions. Like he's not doing it like he's actually kind of conflicted. And also that he genuinely craves like affection. Like he doesn't just want to, he's not like a Theon, right? Where he just goes around and like sticks it in whatever. Like he clearly wants that kind of physical affection.
Daemon is like the Prince Harry of this world. He just wants love. Right? He's just a 3-year-old temper tantrum throwing little boy who basically just wants his mum to rub his head and give him a hug.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, he's just this
or his brother
cavernous hunger for love. Yeah,
I mean that
he's Prince Harry.
He reminds me a little bit of Homelander, like that, only not quite as psychopathic.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
We're gonna get a milk fetish.
I don't think he's clinically impotent. I don't think that's the thing. I think it's basically just his family getting into his head and messing with his
like an emotional impotence, maybe. Like I don't know what.
Yeah, like exactly. Whenever like whenever you're sad, you might not be into it as much.
Just I think how reasonable people.
But his precious bodily fluids are functional.
I mean, it clearly works. I mean, it clearly works. We're going to see that later, right?
Right. Yeah, I mean, I just think...
And we all know the bloodworm is the longest dragon of all.
Oh, Jesus.
Beware the bloodworm when it is roused to its mighty wrath.
Here you go.
House words.
Which reminds me,
there we go. Those are house words. Beware the bloodworm.
Also, we have the spunk.
Oh no! I'm ending this now. I'm ending the recording at least. Y'all are a bunch of nutters, and I love you for it.
Just really fast. Was I the only one that enjoyed that Bracken beatdown? I really enjoyed it.
That was awesome.
Yeah. Oh no, that was fun. Yeah. That was fun. I was surprised we didn't even talk about it. Actually,
can you imagine being the actor who's like, I got to call someone a dumb cunt on House of Dragons, and I got stabbed in the belly.